On this week's Going Dork Reviews, we take a look at episode 4 of Lovecraft Country, a history of violence. In the guest seat, once again, Mr. Sebastian Arnold. Let's get to the show.
Hop up in our spaceship, we got Sasquatch and Llama. One's a little shy, but the other's a real drama. Pinball wizard pinging our planets at most. Another job done, hit the lights, close the blinds. Find a remote, let them know it's true crime, space fly shit.
Welcome to Going Dork. Today we're reviewing yet another episode of the lovely series Lovecraft Country. Lovely is a kind of a subjective word, I guess, or a weird word to use, but I think it's a great series. With me, yet again, Mr. Sebastian Arnold.
Howdy. Good to be back.
Hello. So yeah, we're getting into Holy Ghost today, episode 3 of Lovecraft Country, and just before we do, we always the last one I added a very special segment in the beginning, which I actually added music to in the full edit, so You're gonna really love it. And it's previously on Lovecraft Country. There we go.
That's fantastic.
All right, so we come from episode 2, Whitey's on the Moon, and a lot of crazy shit happened in that one. That one actually, just the gist, the basic sort of, gist is they wake up in a mansion and then find a little more information about sort of these suspicions that Atticus has, and it just gets weirder and weirder.
You got it. It's like, they just came they went to the place that his father supposedly was asking to come save him. They found out a little bit more about that place. And in this entire episode, you got a feel for that place, saw some of the monsters from before.
Right.
And really saw a lot of the magic was touched on a lot in this series. Right. So that kind of opened that door. And then you just saw the ingenuity once again from the family, from Letitia, Montrose. We saw him actually for the first time. Mm-hmm. And it was just, it was it was like really, I felt like the first 2 episodes are like together. Like they really like hit the same notes and just emphasize more on something that was kind of hinted at in the first one, and then it resolved itself. And like for me, that was the big thing watching that, just to finish the recap, just being like when I watch that type of thing, I usually, when I watch a show from the second episode, can kind of figure out the type of layout that they have. But when they pretty much finished off all the ideas and strands that I thought would really like that they would investigate further and make more the center of this show, they were like, no, that's essentially, at least with that episode, they made it seem like that's that and that's handled and that's episode 2. So the rest of this is going to be some other stuff, and that was like exciting. And third episode is
sort of the spoilers ahead, of course, if we didn't mention it up top, but
yes,
it sort of ends with Atticus finding his uncle in the car, right? And shit has just gone south. He's dead, and we start the third episode at a funeral for a friend, and they are celebrating his life, and basically Letty has a moment. I don't know if you have deeper details into this, but
for this part, like I really wanted to compare it to the last episode, where like I like how because so much happens, the start of the episode, I feel like is always like it's great that they use it differently each time, because it's like a good way to like kind of adjust, kind of give you a feel into a sense of what's going on. And like with this, how it opened, where it's like, a church and a funeral and everything, and you presume it's George. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, first I'm just like, oh, this is super cool that we're seeing, really black church like in this death, which normally, is felt and expressed in a very like subdued way.
Right.
We're getting a real nice sense of like, just like, I want to say exuberance, but that is like a happy connotation. I don't really want to mean that. But it's just a lot of movement, a lot of like feeling of the emotion and letting it run its course. But then in that same moment, like you said, Letty, we get to put more emphasis on what I believe as I watch this again is the through line of this episode, where it's like, how is she coming to terms with everything that's happening right now? And like, to say everything, I love the way they put this episode together, because I feel like they really they lay it out and you see exactly what is bothering her, how she's adjusting to it, and a resolution to what her, I guess, turning point.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a huge moment for her from the get-go of like, where's my place in the world? What the fuck just happened? Like, why is this person that I love,
Yeah,
obviously she didn't know him as well as Atticus or whatever, but like, why is this person dead, and who am I, and everything I thought that I knew was completely wrong. And she actually verbalized that later in the episode. But amazing moment. It's I love the sort of juxtaposition between the celebration of life and then her just being in this like, my life has changed completely.
Exactly.
Thought that was really nice. But we move on to a very sweet scene where Letty buys a house, a really creepy house.
Yeah. And then just before that, just because like, I like, again, I feel like I'm going to talk about this a lot, because I feel like they use the tropes of horror so well. And the other two episodes, like as they had monsters and things of that, I feel like those are more monster movies, and I don't really, as horror is like evolved, I think monster movies are a type of horror, but this is like this episode especially, I feel like was like, this is going to be a horror episode. And I love that we had all that in that first moment, but then like the episode kind of changes and they're like giving you history of like some stuff that happened. She's buying this house, and then they give you the countdown, like some stuff's going to happen. And I feel like that was just like to bring the horror right back, even though like that emotion started it off, just be like, this is like a horror show kind of. And I was really like, I was excited about that.
Yeah, on an episode by episode basis. But the first one is kind of like a zombie film almost, or it feels like that. And then this one, episode 3, is very horror-ish. Very.
And I was like, for me, this was the first one where I was, because I watch him at night, I was like, I'm a little like looking outside a little bit.
Do
like,
I have a basement?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I was really, for the first time, scared.
Right. That's great. That's I'm sure that's what they wanted it to do. So. Yeah, I try to watch. I don't know what your method is, but I guess you sort of explained it there. But I try to watch to the first viewing completely separated from any sort of like review, or I don't even write shit down. I just want to absorb it, and But then the next time or two, it's like I break it down and look at it, and we sort of after her moment in the church, time has passed and. We see Letty and her sister walking, and she is just so excited that she bought this house. And, I'm sure there's a music cue when we see this house, because it's fucking terrifying. And she has dreams of making it a boarding house for people of color, and a safe space amongst very unsafe spaces in that area. And she wants to be a better sister. You can see it sort of... she says it out, and really wants this to be a home for them.
Exactly. I totally agree. And to like we said, she starts the episode, we see her crying and very detached. And the next time we see her is like super, like, I want to say aggressively, like, look at, like, let's do this. Let's go out. Like, we got this house, me and you, we could really do something type thing. And I was like, okay, cool. This is nice. To see the pioneering aspect of her, but also I love, again, the horror aspect, where it's like, this is what you normally see when the person comes in and they're like, oh, I'm so excited to get into this super haunted house, and you don't really have any context, so you're like, that's kind of stupid. But in this aspect, you're like, oh, that's nice that she wants to do this, but you could tell this is a weird place.
Yes. And the horror aspect of what you're saying, like, there's a sting when they get in the elevator and look up, and it nearly takes her head off. Yeah. And it's like that. I love that. I love that they sort of just sprinkle them in here and there. You know what I mean? Just to keep you on edge and keep the whole world a little sort of just I don't know. It's
dangerous.
Yeah. Yes. It's crazy to think too that house is just in the middle of a neighborhood that just does not want them there.
Exactly.
But yeah, and then I loved it. I loved the first few. I think it was a great start and a much less confusing start to the episode than the last one.
I agree.
Just because I didn't really understand at first. The next morning, Hippolyta sits in her room and looks at a copy of Dracula. This I didn't necessarily get, other than I know it's his favorite book, right?
Yeah,
but why is she tearing pages? Did you get any?
To be honest, this is one of the ones where like I like it a lot because as they set this up, they're gonna bring everything home and they're gonna give you enough. And I feel like the way that I like to look at things is like if they're not giving you complete answers, you just got to kind of like relax and just let it like wash over you. Because like I agree, that's super really no context. He likes books, so like all you could really infer is maybe she's upset. But why would she be upset?
Right. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's
it's a little off. Sorry to cut you off. It's just a little off, and then just to continue on and how that I feel like affects the next part of it is like when she's with Tick and Dee in the kitchen, and you start to see or start to feel the time and like after the death and the funeral.
There is
a
major hole in that family. Yeah. You know what I mean? You notice it by the the single on the plate on the table that's obviously not being filled and they're keeping open, and obviously we'll learn later that she notices that glass that's upside down. It's like all these little things start to sort of weigh on her, and I think that is sort of the height of that is when she basically Atticus is telling her like, listen, you have a deadline, and she keeps missing it, so he did it himself for the new copy of the guide. I guess I don't know if it's another version or a new whatever.
I think it's like an updated thing they do often. And it was interesting to see that dynamic after not really being in the house for a little while. Yep. It was interesting to see, and it was like the way that they framed it. It gave us a lot of, I feel like, insight, at least a little bit, into how much time had passed.
Yes,
and just how things are going, and doesn't seem to be going too well.
Right, and even so, like the awkwardness was sort of palpable towards the end there, and
definitely,
I think he gets the point right there of like, I feel like I'm wearing out my welcome,
exactly,
and this family needs to heal without me, and the guy who blows through town every now and again. But he sort of explains he's not staying over, and obviously Dee is not on board with that. But
she's a little upset, which is nice.
Yeah. So I think the next logical step here for him would be to go find a place to stay. So he goes to his dad's place, and this is a great little scene just because it's a obviously the acting's on point and it looks beautiful, and but there's a very there's a very deep message of family in there of like we have Montrose Freemans in our family. Everybody does. You know what I mean? That's sort of like may have a little attachment to alcohol or drugs or something, and just doesn't typically have their shit together. So he sort of wakes them up with a cup of water. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And much different than Atticus, I feel like. Much different. Yeah. So they sort of have a talk, and it's very serious, and sort of Atticus wants to move forward based on what his uncle would do, and Montrose just not having any of it, not having the conversation, not having anything, and that sort of wraps up his wish to stay there. He doesn't even want to be involved, which I totally feel. Yeah,
I mean, he comes over, and he walks in on eggshells, but it resolves itself how I feel like everybody would expect. The hard man as his father is, and Tick as I feel like has grown to probably have to act hard in a similar way against him. It's like, it's two of similar forces butting heads, and that's not gonna, like, he's not gonna be able to stay there. So eventually he's like, okay.
Yeah. He does have an amazing record collection. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
It's great. It's beautiful. Well, we see a very moving on. We see a very ominous moniker of day 2 at the house, which is great, and we see a very happy Letty.
Exactly.
And she's really making her. She's very much settling into her world, which is, I feel like, something that she had been running from for a long time, and obviously when all the shit went down, it's just changed her completely. So
yeah, because like before we said, she's sad, we see her happy, and then the next thing, she's really like now even more than just with her sister, excuse me. She's with everybody else, having a good time, taking photos, moving everybody in. It's a joy. Like, seems to be a real joy.
Reminiscent of the block party for sure.
Yeah.
Of like, just pure everything's gonna be fine. Which we know is not the case, but sort of in the mix, Letty shows up and she offers him a room. He sort of wants to go back to Florida and go back to work. And we're sort of have a sweet moment for a millisecond, and the racist bullshit sort of starts seeping back in, which is these 3 guys who park their cars out front of her house and then just tie bricks to the horns.
Just one thing I would say is, like, because of Tick and Letty, like we were saying, he's going about trying to find places, and like when I was first watching this, I was like, okay, he's gonna try to hang out here for a little bit. That's pretty cool,
right?
And the fact that he's like, oh no, I'm just here to be like, adios, I'm actually leaving. I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect that. And she's like, obvious at the same time, I could tell didn't expect that either.
Oh yeah.
And then for that to lead into, like you're saying, the racist stuff, and then Tick being like, oh, I'm gonna stay now.
Yeah, that's a great moment on the porch, and you see the cops rolling by in slow motion, and they don't give a fuck.
Exactly.
I love it. He's on the porch surrounded by his people, and is just like, no, I can't leave. It's a great sort of build up to
and it gives it, it's like I feel like, because I think this episode is really like a Letty episode, heavy. It's nice how Tick, even though I'm sure he doesn't believe he's like stepping on toes and like being like, I'm gonna be the man in the situation, and he really just wants to help. It's just set up well that like that is the reason that he's gonna stay, even though she would like him to stay for probably other reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that is explored in this episode, and we'll get to that. But yeah, they're definitely setting up the want and the need and the I don't know, the yearning for each other, and sort of the fact that they all, especially I feel like Atticus is just pulling the cold shoulder right and left and doesn't know what the fuck to do. But anywho, it starts getting weird after this. As soon as the races show up, shit starts getting weird. We see Letty napping, and then her covers are pulled, which is we're getting back to the horror aspect, and we the camera sees, the audience sees a creepy old lady by her bed with no chin. She starts sort of like rising from the side of the bed, which is great, and you just see she has no chin, which is very creepy,
scary stuff.
And then
again, looking amazing, but it was just like, oh, because like, it's like I said, I feel like they always do it so well. So it's like racist stuff, and you're like, damn, thinking to yourself, man, this is really heavy. And then the next thing you see like is like scary stuff, and you're like, wow, I'm scared now. Like, it's like you forget about the last thing, because both of them together are honestly, they mess with your mind, similar like feeling, but in different ways. And I like that they push it back again and again. And to continue on, like, I feel like you don't even hear the horns that are continuing to go outside or realize why she's sleeping the way she does until after the scary stuff kind of goes away. And then that like horn, like that sound cue is really nice to me, how it rises, and you can really, after all the scary stuff goes away.
Well, she does open the window at some point when she wakes up, because it's so hot in there. And
that's what I mean. Like,
is that what you mean?
Yeah, because it's like as she's walking, like to me, I had forgot about it. So when I heard the horn out again as she walks up to the door, I thought to myself, do I hear it at all when she's in her bed? 'Cause I mean, I don't think it's a far distance.
Right.
It's just interesting that in the horror moment, it's very quiet. But then as soon as that dissipates, as she's walking, the horn, like that other horror, is now back. And it's even in the sound cue. It's there again.
Yeah, totally get what you mean. I never really thought about the sort of like when one happens, the other happens. But I guess that's sort of a trope in this whole series of like merging the monsters, sort of. Well, she hears something in the basement after, her windows are sweating, and she checks, and the horns are still going, and she goes down to the basement, and something is trying to like get out or shaking the shelf. And the one thing that caught my eye was as she's going through there, after she's through the spider webs, there's this creepy like Adult Swim looking cat thingy on the top of the shelf.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
It's like an old toy. It must be like a 40s, 50s toy, but it's
crazy.
Terrifying.
You know it's nuts. I'd never, like, every time I watched it, I couldn't even make out what that was. And as I'm looking at it, because I'm like, I watch as we're talking, but as I'm looking at it, you're saying this, and I'm like, wow, that's what that is. It doesn't look exactly like what you're saying.
I'm not sure. But it's great. It's great because it's the old, I can't remember the name, but show us one thing and then do the other. But,
exactly.
But yeah, the basement, creepy as ever. She gets down there and basically freaks the fuck out when the boards start to move, as if somebody's trying to get out. Yep. She enlists Atticus to come down with the baseball bat and to try to see what the fuck's going on. And another very sweet moment between those two in the basement of like, she's trying to like, I think, pull it out of him a little, and he's still kind of like, hey, let's not talk about this. How about we talk about how great the basement is for a dark room? Which is not even remotely in her head at that point, I don't think.
Yeah.
But,
and like for me as watching, I felt the same way. It was just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why is that like, how did you even think of that? But yeah, she was taking photos before, which that's what made me think about that more. Because when he said it, I was like, where did that come from? Right.
Yeah. But it's definitely a sort of like, I'm uncomfortable and it's time to change the subject sort of thing.
For sure.
We get another moniker, day 8, and the party is on. We see a shot of the neighbors looking through the windows. Great shot of the house just booming, and then the racist neighbors are just sort of peering on. Addie is just in heaven. Letty is just in heaven. You can just tell.
Yeah.
This is like she's seeing the sort of the result of her hard work.
Yeah,
and
for
getting
labor
through some of this bullshit. Yeah. All in the under the guise of like nobody wants you there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think she's just releasing a bit, but yeah, the great thing about this whole you know what I forgot was the Letty and Hippolyta in the kitchen. They have a weird little chat about I guess not weird, I shouldn't say that, but they definitely have a sort
her
of
suspicions. Yeah, she I see, that's the
and
thing about Hippolyta, and because it's like, as the party goes, we've kind of seen this before, because in the first episode, they were at a party, and we've understood this type of thing. So it's like you're saying, it's important, the Hippolyta and Letty conversation, because we're seeing how Hippolyta kind of is investigating these feelings, because we know that she has them now, and then she's kind of poking and nudging here and there, as you can see with Letty, because she went on the trip, and she's a woman probably, so she feels a little bit, she could probably talk to her.
Right. Yeah, very sweet. Basically from there we go, it's just one of my favorite scenes in the whole thing, which is just a group of kids with Dee, at the helm, just playing with a Ouija board. And it's one of these, it's sort of everybody knows the trope of a Ouija board, everybody knows what's happening, but still when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good because they're just sitting there, and something I didn't catch until after watching the episode is the first kid that talks. I think he asked the question, like, will I have fun on my trip to Mississippi? And then I'd sent you a screen grab of somebody who'd apparently that's Emmett Till, which I had no recollection. I just didn't make the connection. I don't know. Most people probably don't.
No way. Because I feel like they show the thing is, they, at least for me, why I wouldn't even think about it is because they showed it in the trailer. And like when they showed it, I just, I don't know. I'm just not thinking about it that way. Yeah. And the Ouija board, I just love that they're playing with it. And that first one you don't even take as serious. So the second one really, like,
right.
I think.
Well, that's kind of shook me on this once I figured out who that was.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It's also a little. Do you think it's a little? I mean, they're obviously taking creative freedom here, with the story and with Emmett Till, and
for sure.
I just wonder how the family, like how I don't know.
Well, see,
does it seem weird to you that they would put this in there?
And that's what I mean, because it's like it's not. The thing is, it's not this. It's not him. You know what I mean? As much as it's like when you make something like inspired by a story, inspired by something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's kind of, you just want that idea to be in your mind. That's just something to, I feel like,
gotcha,
characterize the situation.
Right.
And I think it's a nice characterization, because like they made for them as the storytellers made no explicit push for that.
Right.
It's just something that they, did well in putting all the different type of elements to get people to have that in their mind. I think that's the most artistic, most like I think best way to use something like that, where it's like you don't just, oh, here's Emmett Till and this is some bad stuff. It's like it's using a very like we're saying, it characterizes the situation because we can realize that Ouija board was always working. It's a very true thing. Yeah. We can characterize just like the thought of travel again hit that home is terrifying. Even so, we're like talking to spirits, and it's just I think it just wraps up well together.
Oh yeah, the end of this scene is incredible. It's after it says no, the kid, it spells out no. Will I have fun on my trip? Then it sort of goes into high gear of who somebody asks who are we talking to, and then Uncle George's name is spelled out. It's George. I forget his last name.
No, but Alice. The thing I looked again. It actually says George is dead, and I started to think about that a little. Yeah, because it.
Oh wow! I thought it just spelled out his last name. I didn't.
It doesn't.
Even,
yeah, because I as it goes, and I'm not sure, because I when you cut things, you can cut it and make it look. Time, I feel like, is subjective. Whenever you go in between cuts, you can go kind of forward and backwards, milliseconds each way, regardless. So like as he says George and spells that out fine, it kind of does the quick little thing that we don't see, and then it goes over again and it does ISDEAD. And for me, I'm not sure if it's like George is dead, they're telling them that, or like it's saying like George who is dead is saying that. Right.
Yeah. Okay. See, but that changes things, because I thought it was just spelling, obviously you think it's the other kids fucking around, but they're all very serious about the fact that it's not what they didn't have anything to do with that, nor would they ever. But yeah, interesting and just creepy as fuck. Either way, I mean, it's different for me now that I should have went back and like looked at it a little better. I don't do a lot. I mean, I do. I've spent hours researching this episode, but like some things just get through, and seems like a very.
For me, I'm not even like thing. I don't even really like. Sometimes I don't want to say stuff about that because like I'm not sure about that. Yeah. That could be a total like so many different things. Right. But I know it means something, so it's just that you just at least log it. That's all.
Yeah. Later. Once Dee freaks out and exits the Ouija board scene, we see her mother upstairs looking for her, and I don't really get either. A door opens and we see this weird contraption, which I can't remember if we've seen before. It looked familiar.
For no spoilers for anything before this episode or after this episode. It's I don't think we've seen it at all.
Yeah. Okay.
But I love the moment because it's like, as you said, it's like super. There's these things in this show where it's like you can tell there's like they're just giving you sense of different things, and like when Hippolyta sees that, the mood changes.
Right.
Everything changes. This is like magical. That's what I thought when I saw it. I was like, oh, this is a magical item. It seems.
Right. Yeah, it's fair, but I don't. Do they even explain it? Or
No,
just
no.
Sort of
She
a
literally,
setup?
it's nice because she literally just comes in and is just enraptured by it, and it just seems to because like as you said, she's going to look for her child. As she's going to look, she is going upstairs but before she does that, she sees it at the corner of her eye, and it's kind of like just like sitting there for her almost. Like it's almost like a dream,
right?
And then she's just like, oh my gosh, this thing, and then we cut.
There has to be some connection, obviously, to George in that, but yeah, I wonder if it's something. She's going to play a much bigger part. Obviously, you can tell just in the end of the whole thing. But, so yeah, we moved to later at the party. Letty's dancing with another man, and we see Atticus show up and see them, and some other guy gets in his ear and is like, it must something that knows him somehow or another. And sort of says that they'd been together in the past, and I don't know if you caught that. We used to. I think his words were, "We used to lie down a lot."
It was like tussle or something like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was that first moment of like Tick really showing.
Right.
Maybe I do like this girl.
Right, because well, of course, as soon as somebody else is like, "Hey, I used to sleep with her, and now I really want to," it's anyway. His last line is sort of, "If she's yours, you might want to tell her," which is very, it's obviously a dead-on fit to the entire
situation.
Yeah, exactly. So, and basically, Addie notices this whole thing while she's dancing with the guy. You know what I mean? So there's definitely a recognition of like, hey, we both know what's going on. So make your mind up, or I'm moving the fuck on. Type of thing is what I gathered.
Yeah.
Addie takes off, cleans her face in the bathroom, and then we see that the audience sees a dead person in the mirror. I don't think she sees it ever.
No.
Because just as soon as that happens, then Atticus busts in, and they have a very sweet sex scene against a very short, sweet sex scene against the sink.
Very sweet out, yeah.
But when I was watching it, it felt obviously I'm rooting for this. I've been rooting for this since the first episode, but it just felt fractured or something. There's
the thing about them too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I didn't want to use the word like rapey, but I did mention that to my girlfriend. I was like, this feels a little like forced. Like
it's strong.
Yeah,
it's a strong moment. I feel like it's the way they set it up is that type of feel, because it's like the whole episode they're pushing and pulling, and then as they go in for it, it's like almost such a build, I guess, of those emotions that it's just like almost this violent moment that they're both kind of just like being as strong as possible. And we know like how Tick is with all the things that he has, like that forward strength aspect is kind of like more present in him. And it seems, I guess we can play that against Letty, even though she's very strong and essential and like not isolated, but like stand on her own type of woman.
Right.
She actually, got soft in this moment. And then we see like there was blood after, which kind of is a whole thing because I feel like
she covers it up pretty well and says it was her monkey, and
she said, and it's just, but start to see some secrets on both sides. I think.
Yes, most definitely. And then that, of course, they're all back down in the party, and we get to the sort of we start heading towards the end here. There's a huge burning cross in the yard, and Letty, it's sort of you can tell that all of these things have added up to this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And just a huge shout out to Journey Smollett, because her performance in this episode is awesome. It's incredible, top to bottom.
Yeah, exactly, top to bottom.
And she, in one of the best scenes of the whole episode, I think she, you can tell that she's just like, all right, I'm done. She walks out, grabs Atticus's baseball bat, and just wrecks the cars, busts out all the windows, and then takes the bricks off of the horns. And it's just incredibly cinematic, and just, there's a burning cross in the background. It's
a great moment of just like her, like, I feel like we said, and I'm going to say this again, she starts sad, gets real happy, has like, and all throughout all these moments, there's like an opposition to every type of feeling that she's having. So she's like sad, and then she gets happy, but it's all kind of messed up a little bit, continuing to have to fight. And then she has the tick moment, and then right after that, she's like, all right, I've had enough with these people, and she just blows up. And it's great. We see like, this is finally her, I think, addressing the problem, at least one of her problems, head on,
right?
Rather than just try to act like it's not in front of her.
I think it's another version of like, we start with her being sort of down on herself, and then she gets the house, and she's having quite an up. She's sort of emotionally at her highest, or pretty high. And then it's just sort of a roller coaster through the whole episode. But she, this is one of those points where it's just like, all right, I've done it before. I just did it. I bought a house. I have all this. I made all this happen. And now guess what? I'm going to do something about this. I am. Nobody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a great sort of, I don't know. It sort of encapsulated her whole performance in the episode to me.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah. We, from there, move into, the paddy wagon. They submit after they see the cops coming, when they bust out the windows, and inside the paddy wagon, it's just her, and what I wrote down was racist McFuckwad captain is inside the paddy wagon, and they have this, very much like some of the other shit that we've heard in the episode from characters like this. We hear sort of a lot of, he knows a lot about her that I'm not sure that she would ever think, just about the house and about what's happening in the house, and knowing that she could never afford the house, and where does the money, who paid you for the house? And, they want to know, obviously, all of this to keep their little neighborhood safe. And at some point, she mentions that she had called the cops several times. Have you gotten my 25 complaints? And they're like, check with the guy who's driving. And he's like, nothing came through. So at some point they start, the driver just goes erratic and is just flinging her from side to side. And again, it's one of these like roller coaster moments of like, oh man, you see her the moment before just owning the moment. And now it's like she is completely helpless inside this car.
Yeah. Real flip. But at the same time, it's like, it was interesting because like, that's how I felt the first time I watched it. But as I watched it a few more times, it was interesting because even though she wasn't in control, she still was like, she didn't back down in that moment, because she used it and learned from it, everything that he said, and really took it to heart. And that's what led her. I feel like that's what broke her out of trying to hide from all of her problems. She kind of got more information about where she's at, more information about what she's up against. So more, I think, motivation to really go after this, really like not back down and not really be as loud, just really like take it on herself to figure this out. Right.
Yeah. It's a great sort of roller coaster ride that she's on. From there, we don't see her get out of jail or any of that stuff. I'm not sure we really need to. But she heads, after she's out of jail, she heads back to the basement, and you can just tell she looks haggard. She looks like she's been through hell. And she begins looking at a lot of her photos and sees something. And I think originally she saw some of these photos separately and was just like, oh, that's weird. Why did that happen?
Yeah.
Because I think we've seen like the double face photo before, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah. It didn't
so now
really make sense. Yeah.
Right. But now we're sort of understanding what all that means. And she furiously assembles all of these pieces on the floor, which creates a weird circle eye sort of thing on the ground. And it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you start seeing a face and then this whole body sort of comes out of the ground and screams at her to get out of my house.
Yeah.
It's just creepy. It's another one of these great horror moments that you mentioned. And I loved it. All of these little things just add to the episode. And again, it's a great horror episode, like you were saying.
And then again, it's like as soon as that horror really, I think, reaches its max, she sees that and then she's like, "Whoa, this is insane!" Because it's like, "Get out of my house!" And it's like, "Oh wow, this is crazy." So she goes and she's searching around the house for more pictures, and then we get back into the real world, and her sister coming up to her being like, "Stuff is messed up from what you did."
Right.
And and then I feel like, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I feel like because she's like presenting that there's a problem. She's trying to take this serious with her because they've been working together. I feel like very fine.
Yeah.
She keeps on nagging like, you got to take this serious, and she just saw that monster stuff. She's like, I got to take this serious.
Right.
And then ultimately, she let slip that the money came from, or was said to have come from, her mother, their mother.
Yes.
And it was only given to her, which leads to a discussion that I don't think we got to go too deep in, but understanding that she, like Ruby, I believe that's her name, is very upset that she got all this money, which makes sense, and that Letty is like using it in a way that is like she's the savior. And like Ruby's whole character is like she needs no saving, and it's like she feels very bad about the situation. So it started from nothing, but we just get to the crux of the actual problem here that she now needs to address. Another one that she was not really addressing, but now she has to.
This one hits Ruby just right between the eyes. I feel like, because it is going so well, and regardless of the monsters and the demons and stuff and the racism and all that bullshit, like you see her, like you said, on a mission because this is much more important. But then once that second hits where of like, hey, our mother gave the sister that was running around the world, the country, and not committing to her family and not showing up at funerals. And like, I could see that. I could see how it's just a gut punch to Ruby.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole conversation I think was great, and it's basically selfish Letty. They're just talking about good old selfish Letty.
Yeah,
so tough. Yeah. So let's see.
We bounced to Hippolyta and Montrose having a conversation together.
Oh, right outside the apartment,
which I think is like again, like I say, like to say this is a Letty episode, but it's nice because they really like Hippolyta. It's like every few beats we just get her under the covers investigation. But Montrose is at her house when they pull up, which is undefined. But
that's weird to me too. Is that he's
there?
The last time we saw him, Atticus has left. So I don't know what has forced him to this point, but when he's there, he's like, I wanted to help Ruby with her throw. Not Ruby. D with her throw, and it just seems to me like
there's some underlying stuff there, and because I think obviously he's there for his own reasons, but it's nice that like she used it as well for her, like to shed some more light, and it's nice to see their relationship in that way because you can tell he came for that reason, but then here she is really like, like she's like real person to real person, like, yo, what's up?
Yeah, something's not adding up here.
Yeah, like just like super, and I like that because like I said, when she's talking to Letty, it was very like chill and nice, and even with Tick earlier, it was even less than that. You know what I mean? So it's like as it's going on, it gets to this heightened point, and then she's just like, yo, bro, like you're here, I didn't invite you here. I didn't ask you here.
Right.
You're asking about these things. What's up? This doesn't feel right. And Montrose sticks to his guns.
Right.
And it's like, oh, it's all good.
Right. He did, like, this is how he, we're not hiding anything from you, which obviously she can sort of see right through. But
yeah.
Later we see Letty at what looks like a bar. I don't know where she is, but she's sort of back in the back, furiously taking notes and going through all these newspaper clippings, and sort of just has a table to herself going through all this stuff about her house. And then she sort of bluntly says, listen, the house is haunted. And I thought it was great where Atticus was just like, all right, tell me how it works. You know what I mean? I thought that was a great moment of like, instead of being like, going through all the bullshit of like, okay, come on. Like, obviously he knows that the shit is real. So there's no reason for him to do it. But I thought it was a very sweet moment.
And again, I think it's them. Like, I totally agree. And I think I love, because like I said, I felt that a lot throughout the episode, and this is a good moment that they just brought it. Like, this is what it is. And even more so, I feel like it kind of begs the point to you, because I'll say again, this is a Letty episode, we get to really see their two approaches to solving their problem. Because as we've seen, like, Letty is just like, I'm a go after it and handle it. Like, she's a kind of adaptive type of person, it seems. She never really is like phased by stuff, and she's just gonna go forward into it. And then we see Atticus, he's more like, as we've seen with like the books and like reading and things, he's like understands the situation and then thinks about the best way that he's heard of. And I think he kind of at one point near the end of the conversation kind of like just blatantly says that, like, for me in horror stuff, like, if a house is haunted, it's telling you to leave. Right. And like as a viewer, like, that's what you would think. Like, you would literally say that. So it's I love that about him. But devil's advocate on the other side, Letty, is like, no, like, this is my house. Yeah. Like, nobody's going to take this house from me. Right. And like, I know this, like, because of the episodes before, we've seen monsters, seen crazy stuff, so I believe it and I understand it's true and I can get through it, as we've already seen. So for her, I love that she's like, I know this stuff is probably better than me and a better way to do it, but I think my way is more true, and I'm going to do that. Do
you find it weird that they haven't really discussed the legacy of Atticus, those two? You know what I mean? Like, part of this is like, he's agreeing very quickly because obviously he knows this shit's real and he wants to take her seriously, but there's awkwardness here because of the sex earlier and all that stuff. But I'm just wondering, like, he's obviously, they think he's some sort of bloodline of something. Like, I just don't, I wonder why that has never been discussed since the destruction of the house. You know what I mean? It's never been about, hey, what the fuck are you?
Yeah. Because you know what it is? I think I like to say those first two episodes are like together. They're a little story. And I think this episode is like a cleanser where it's like, this is about a lot of people. It's not just about like, he's the savior that is a bloodline descendant of this, that, and the third. It's like, I feel like they're making a point to really emphasize this is about the area, the time, a group of people, and the way a group of people go about something. I don't think it's so much so that even like, because I agree they haven't, and I'm sure they will. But it's like, I think because they don't just hit that home and stay with that central storyline, like I'm saying, like, they have a lot of different storylines that they like very well jump in and out and touch. And I think the point is to look at them with all, like, there's value in all of them. You may not be getting the full story as you watch it one way through, but as you continue to watch over time, I think it'll only get better, and only like we'll begin to understand more just the reasons why they were shown in certain ways to begin.
Just a note too that when she was in the back of the paddy wagon, the cop makes it known that there were 8 people who died in the basement of her, who I guess bought the house and then went missing and were found dead in the basement of the house. And now that's part of what she's doing in the bar is she has found these 8 dead faces in photos and paper and has linked them to her photos. So she has like legitimate evidence of like, hey, there's something majorly weird happening. And then, of course, the big sort of, I don't know, expose of the scene, and that's not true. That's not a good word, but the big reveal of the scene is that she was a virgin, and that was her first time.
Yeah,
and obviously he apologized. I think that's where he sort of feels the. I don't know. It just feels like for a moment he's like, oh, and sort of lets her talk, and like she's like, listen, I just wanted to feel something, and I finally did, and again, this whole thing is a little weird, but yeah,
it brings them closer because it's like you said, they had the relation or whatever, they had sex in that odd way, and then it like she goes to jail type thing, and then here we are again, they're linking up, and we're not quite sure what's up. So I think that kind of just here we are kind of coming back together, and then now we're going into the next thing because, like you said, they're like, how are we going to deal with this house, which is the ultimate thing.
Then let's see. It's the next scene starts as we see more neighbors peering through windows, and I don't know what is a shaman. I put a shaman, but I don't think a shaman is the correct
term. A medicine woman is what I said. Yeah.
She basically arrives at the house, and before you can even think about what she's doing there, she slits the throat of a goat. And
classic, honestly.
Yeah, classic. And pours it into, it's classic horror, so it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
Puts the blood into a little cup, and then X marks the door entry, and then their foreheads, all their foreheads. And she heads in to rid the house of its demons. Lights begin to flicker. They're talking, they're sort of in the basement trying to do this ritual. And you see that things are beginning to happen with lights flickering, sort of like the same deal of when everything else happens. If you think about it, like the Ouija board and some of the other basement stuff, like you just see like, a little flicker, and then you're like, oh, shit's about to happen. But yeah, so they're in the basement, they're doing their thing, and they're, she makes it the medicine woman makes it very clear to like, keep the circle and together. And they at this point the racist neighbors, 3 racist neighbors break into the house.
Yeah, they break in, and then they start to like, look for them with malice, but at the same time they're downstairs in the basement trying to bring out these evil spirits.
There's shit flying around the room, and lots of music stings and lots of like building of the of what's happening. Sort of right beside these 3 racist fucks, like tiptoeing around their home. At some point, they make their way into a room. I think 2 of them get sucked into this room. And then one other guy's sort of wandering, but. The door slams behind him, so like shit's about to get real. And my favorite part of the episode, possibly, you hear one of them hears a baby.
Yeah,
right. They
always hear a baby. The worst thing to hear in a horror movie or TV show. Just a baby's like, oh, this isn't gonna
just
be good.
Leave. Just get. I mean, there is no baby in need. Just leave.
Exactly.
At that point, he enters the room to, in theory, I guess, save the baby or whatever, and you see baby Shaquille O'Neal full form, walking towards him, and I can't remember how he dies, but he certainly gets it from Baby Shaq.
Yeah, it was a tough situation. He really used some strength to kill him, and that's when I was like, I like that, because not to go too far into like what happens each time, but that was nice with the horror, because as they're doing the stuff downstairs with the demons, my thought process is like, okay, these are going to be some bad guys coming out. And the stuff that was around Letty earlier and throughout the episode, every time I see it, I'm like, this looks dangerous and not good. So it was like a moment where I'm like, oh, wow. These demons that I thought think they are coming, they're killing these guys, and they're downstairs bringing them out. So I'm like thinking it's going to be all good. And then we kind of see the demons downstairs start coming out and taking over.
Yeah, which we link immediately to those 8 folks that she found in the paper and in her photos, which start as sort of ghostly figures and then come to life. But the great part is we cut back from that and we see the third guy who hadn't been killed by Baby Shack hear the elevator open up, right? And so he goes and takes a look and it just straight up chops his head off. Which is a great horror visual. You see the blood sort of pumping out of him, which is a little comical for me, but it's still very, as soon as you saw him going towards that elevator, you're like, oh,
you knew it. You knew
it.
That's the one.
So downstairs in the basement, all the shit's going down and I think it sort of settles down for a minute and how does it go down again? So they're chanting, and then at some point
it's going crazy. They think it's all good, right? They like it got a little intense and hype, and they saw the stuff start to go crazy, and then it, like you said, settled down. Right. And then as it settles down, they get excited again because it felt like that was like they did it, Right. And then water comes out.
Oh, right.
And they immediately break, which is the first thing that I feel like everybody's like, oh, that's not what you're supposed to do. But then they like mention our marks. And then it's like the blood that they put on their head to protect them is getting washed off.
Oh,
and then as soon as that happens, like I said before, whereas like I felt like the monsters were good and they brought them out and they got it and it was all right. We immediately see that that's not the case because the medicine woman gets grabbed, thrown back into the room, and then it really gets into the ghost type possession type thing. So she's like beating them up all over the room, this way and that way. And this is like out of nowhere resolution of Letty type thing begins to take form, I think, because it's like medicine woman is choking Atticus on the wall, and Letty is just like yelling and then kind of like, I think, getting into her mind, trying to help the situation. Yeah. She falls out. I mean, the medicine woman falls out, and then we see even worse that Tick is now possessed by the monster, and it seems to be amazingly worse than it was with the medicine woman. Yeah, it went from bad to worse very rapidly. Yeah. The which is a great. This whole ending part of the scene is just incredible because you see Atticus with the black eyes and he's just flipping his head around nonstop. And it's sort of reminiscent of there's some 90s movie like Jacob Flatter or something like that does this too really well. But yeah, at this point, I mean, Letitia's like freaking the fuck out because she doesn't know what to do. But she also sort of takes control, as you were just saying, and calls on the dead to help her rid themselves of this demon. And those, I guess, 9 folks with 8 with her and then with Letty, form a circle and they just do the same sort of chant. And you see all these creatures and dead folks and people without a head and Jackie Robinson's there. And it's like, or a young, I don't know if it is Jackie Robinson. Yeah, it's just a young baseball player kid. But yeah, and it's basically they're chanting again. Young Shaq is there. Baby Shaq, he's there chanting. And at some point they start sort of turning back into their normal selves, which I think is just... the chanting is, it brings out the doctor guy that was doing all these experiments to these people. And then as that happens, they continue to chant and you can, as you said, they all begin to become who they were before this dude was doing whatever it was that he was doing to them. And it begins to deteriorate the ghost of the homeowner. And we see the climax of her. It worked pretty much. She like used all of everything that was inside of her, really dug deep, faced her demons, used other demons, and really like broke through. Like, this is my house. And get the fuck out. Yeah, she solidified that like she owns this place now. And then I feel like after that, to wrap it up, we see I think, a mirror of when she first showed the house to her sister, and the way the move-in is going now is it's a much more calm, much more like adult, and it's not just like I'm doing this because I want to be like I'm trying to force myself to be happy and forget about things. She's like truly come to terms with type of things and done things in the correct way, at least.
Right. Yeah. What an incredibly emotional performance by Jurnee Smollett. Really, really good. And that scene just is the icing on the cake. But yes, we head back to the after all the shit has the bad guy has been erased from wherever he was, and we're back in sort of the real world, as you said. I don't know how you phrased it, but yes, we're back sort of as in the beginning of the episode, where everything is nice and there's a house, and theoretically all that stuff has been wiped, and we see that Letitia's getting interviewed by someone, and let's see sorry, I'm gonna skip along here. So somebody's interviewing her about sort of what has happened and what she did, and her sort of helping out the community in a place where she's not wanted. And one of the great things is like the reporter sort of. All right, two things about this that really intrigues me. One is that she gets her picture taken at some point right outside of the elevator. So I'm wondering if that's going to come back at some point. And if anybody else is going to be in those pictures, or if they have just completely solved the problem and they have ascended and everything's back to normal at the house. But and then the other thing, towards the end of the scene, we see as the picture's taken of Letitia and they sort of walk off, we see the elevator move down, even past to a place I thought it was the basement it was moving down to.
No,
but it's like somewhere deeper into the.
This is like, to go off that point, because like I think the photo isn't as important as the second thing that you're saying, because I thought about it, and when it goes down, those there's like 3 flashing things or whatever that come up,
right?
And that's why I was like, I saw that and I was like, this can't be the basement. And the only reason, because I feel like those, I want to say when they were doing that Adam's Gate thing in the previous episode, those images it was either somewhere in that episode, those images are on something.
Okay.
And it's like, it to me seems to be like a barrier between say like the mystical side of things and the more reality. So I feel like whenever I see those, that's like, there's like that's a line between the two things. That's why I felt like when it went that far down and we saw those bodies there, I'm not sure how they got there, who put them there or anything like that. But there was, as we saw down the cavern of the bodies of the guys that tried to break in and do their thing that got killed. We see many, many more bodies, which would be like even more than they were mentioning before about like the 8
or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And I found that I feel like is there's something there with that for sure.
So does that, exactly. Does that mean that that's the tip of the iceberg, or is there more to come? But again, we might move from this house as we did with the last mansion and just be like, all right, well, we're not back there.
Exactly. Because that's the thing. It's like, I think what I learned from the second episode is like like I talked about, it's not like we get in the way, I think, sometimes really locking stuff in. Like, it's got to be about this place or this person. And I think what they're doing well, and I think it goes to like, especially the name as well, as like Lovecraft Country. Like, this is, it's bigger. The heart of what we should be really looking at, I think, is the magic. Because like there's the magic in the horror aspect and the mysticism that is, I think that is what's leading all these things. Everything else is happening because that's the situation of the time. But I think there's a point to the things that we are like being, that are not even we're seeing, but are happening to our heroes.
Right. Yeah. And we just have to watch and see.
Yeah.
So as a sort of bumper on the end of this episode, I didn't expect this scene. I honestly thought once we saw those neighbors, it was done. Or when we saw the deeper into the basement with all the bodies of different, you could tell that some had been there for 100 years and some had been there for 20 years or 10 years. You know what I mean? Like you could tell that there was like just different levels of dead bodies in there. So later, we see that same silver bullet car show up outside of a business, and I couldn't gather whose business this was, or if it was just something.
Well, it kind of brought home. Like you said, it's like a real bumper to the episode. We were really looking at it as Letty, doing her thing in like the house. She resolved her issues, but as we saw at the end, bumper. This was like an after credits. I feel like we see the business that sold her the house. Or the realtor,
okay,
was a front, and it wasn't even really. Gotcha. It wasn't even really a realtor, and that's what I mean. All the mysticism and everything. That's what it hits home, because everything that we saw, we think as before, Atticus and them are just kind of walking into this stuff,
right?
And that's not the case,
right?
Like they're being pushed in this way, and we see Lady Braithwaite, reveal herself to be pulling some strings,
right?
And Atticus, and we only find that out because Atticus realized and was obviously doing his own investigation that we weren't initially privy to, and they have their little face off.
Yeah,
and I think from that, we get the big understanding of like what her motivation is, because it seems that she's I wouldn't say enemy, but the prime antagonist, at least at this point.
Right.
Because
everybody else turned to dust at this point.
Exactly. She's and we get to see her, I think, the introduction to why she's doing what she's doing. Because she pretty much shows that she can't be killed by Atticus. And then in revealing that, she just hints at that her father, his claim to fame was having this ability. And that was like his big thing. I think with that, we're saying that she also figured out how to do that, but wants to elevate herself,
right?
And sees an opportunity to do that. I'm not sure how, but pulling strings.
Right. I mean, her last line to him is sort of "Call me when you're ready to discuss our family legacy." So it's like
exactly
she does. And I'm not sure she knows either at this point. You know what I mean? I think they're all sort of in the same boat as Christine, her dad is now turned to dust. So it's like, I'm sure she's, as a woman, especially who hasn't seen the deep dark workings of this secret society, is also sort of treading through this weird supernatural wasteland or whatever it is, like just as much as he is, kind of, although she knows,
I think
obviously she knows magic. And
I think just to like wrap it, is just like, for me with her, I think she's like her father, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love that they show, you would think that her father would be the type of prime antagonist, the guy that knows more about the situation and is his ultimate goal, world domination type thing. Right. We take that away immediately.
Well, that's exactly. And we were surprised by that.
Exactly. And I feel like what this little, like I say, it's an introduction for who she is, because I believe she is what we thought her father was.
Okay.
So but I don't want to say like her motivation is world domination, because like she, in every time that she's talked, has made it a point to be like, stop thinking that like the old way, or the way that normally you see the bad guy things they want to do, is the only way things can get done. And I think that's a big point in this show in general. Most of what you think normally is just not the case. Like, you got to look and think a little bit harder, because like they're presenting things differently. And I feel like she wants to do something, and it has to do with gaining power. She's not a nice person. She wants to have the power that her father was trying to possess, and possess it in the correct way.
Right. But I guess I didn't get that completely, just because like I think she's more sort of, I don't know, to me it seemed like she was a little more a little more in the dark of the whole thing, and like I can't necessarily see that she's even on a level as her father, just because it was set up as like that those two sort of butted heads. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird. It's a bit weird to me that she would automatically have his same sort of end game in mind.
Yeah.
And it not be a little on the lighter side of and not opening up a gate to Eden and reclaiming the world. You know. I don't know, but it just seems to me like they're two different. Now there's a much different plan that she's putting into place. That maybe he would have had, but
yes, I agree with that.
Also, one of the moments in the scene where before he pulls the gun, he turns all the blinds down so nobody can see in, and then once he's captured up in his magic and pointing the gun at her, and she has full control over him, she goes back and sort of opens up all the blinds, which I thought was a very great choice. So
tense, very tense moment.
But that's the end of episode 3 of Lovecraft Country. I was thinking, Sebastian, we should probably rate these somehow or another, or put them in some sort of like order of how we like them, but I haven't really figured that out yet. So we'll
I mean, I definitely, at least for these first 3, like I said, just quick. 1 and 2 to me, I feel like are like the same. They, not to say they hit the same notes, but I think they're not telling a different story. They're trying to like really open up the world for us to start and hit a complete point. And that's why, for me at least, the 3rd episode is for sure my favorite so far. Yeah. Even looking forward. Have you seen the 4th yet? Or yeah. No? Okay. And it's even though the 4th is good, the 3rd is my favorite so far still.
Wow. Okay. Well, there's a little spoiler for the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, y'all, and we'll be back with episode 4 soon. Give the show a look, goingdork.com or Going Dork on all the socials. You can find me at Jeremy Balon on the Instagrams, at Remy Balon on other things. Sebastian, you can find it at Bassamillion on most of his socials. Check out his music, North South, on SoundCloud. What else? I think that's it, man. Thank you so much for hanging again, and we literally have just scratched the surface of the show, I believe. So
yes, I totally agree. It's so much fun. I appreciate it.
All right, man. See you on the next one.
Adios.
All right, bye. Going Dork stars and is produced by me, Jeremy Balon. For more information on the show, visit goingdork.com and find us on all the socials as Going Dork. We are a part of the Seltzer Kings family of podcasts. For more information on them, check out seltzerkings.com. And if you want to continue the conversation, give me a shout on my socials, at Remy Balon on most things, at Jeremy Balon on the Instagram. Thanks for listening.